respect for people with mental health issues. Not that I ever looked down on them. I've had a lot of people in my life, significant others and close, dear friends. Some of my best friends in the world have struggled with depression and anxiety their whole lives. And I never looked down on it, but I never quite understood it. And I remember talking to somebody, within the last 6 months, and I was like, damn, is this what you feel like every day? And they're like, yeah, you get it now? And I'm like, yeah, this is awful. So if anything, I think like I'll come out of this with like a newfound respect for what my fellow man goes through, or how people might suffer in silence. So at least there's that, like, that's a bright side of this.
So what inspires you? You talked about pride motivating you. Who or what inspires you to whatever, work hard, be successful? You fill in the blank, but what is it? Who is it?
I have a lot of creative, like, filmmakers and writers and artists that I admire for their output. There's a few people who I admire from just like a personal standpoint of their worldview and how kind they are. We didn't get to talk about this, but I brought a book here that is a speech that Neil Gaiman gave. Gabe, you've probably heard me give this anecdote before, but if you've got like 20 minutes to spare, I highly recommend. There's Neil Gaiman gave a commencement speech. If you just it's called his like make good art speech. And he gave it to a graduating class, a commencement speech, and he was talking about doing work. And he said something that stuck with me. He gave this speech like pretty much right when I was graduating from college. And he was talking about how people keep getting work because of three things. They keep getting work because their work is good, because they're easy to get along with, and they deliver the work on time. But the kicker is you don't even need all three. People will tolerate how unpleasant you are if your work is good and you deliver it on time. They'll forgive the lateness of the work if it's good and they like you. And you don't have to be as good as the others if you're on time, and it's always a pleasure to hear from you. And that's something that has always stuck with me in my professional life. So I always like to talk about that when we talk about work and being inspired and just your place in the workforce, because I know which two of those three I am, and I always like to tell it to people, and I'm like, do you know which two of those three you are? And if you sit and you really think about it, you'll know which ones you are. So that always inspires me a little bit. I think about that often in my professional life. But like, I'm really blessed to be working at a place where the people around me also inspire me. I've worked in places where everyone keeps to themselves and is only looking out for number one, and is more than willing to throw people under the bus if it means getting ahead. And I've worked at places that are not like that. And ReedPop is not like that. And to what we talked about earlier, that camaraderie keeps me going. And my desire to not be the weakest link of the team, and to help and be there for everybody else as much as I can, and help them be the best versions of themselves that they can be. And like, there's something special about conventions that doesn't really get talked about enough. Like, magic happens there. Like, people's lives get changed at conventions. And I'm not talking about like, I met Chris Evans and he hugged me and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Every career move that has ever been of value to me happened at a convention. When I went to New York Comic Con the first time in 2007, which was the second year, I said, man, I want to do something with this someday. And then when I got my job in the comic book industry, it happened at a convention. You know, like, it's just, there's something that can't be explained about, like, how important it is, how important these things are to people who work in our industries. And so, you know, consciously or subconsciously, I like the idea of giving that back to somebody else, and helping to make that engineer on some small level that connection that that gives somebody a job, or gets somebody's foot in the door, or get somebody's work seen, or what have you. Like, I think that's just so cool.
It's ineffable, isn't it? Like, there's, you could talk around it all day, but you can never really pinpoint that magic that you're talking about. That sort of, yeah, it's a very difficult thing to pinpoint. It's a feeling more than it is even a thing.
It's also really weird. Like, do you ever experience this where you're like reading an interview with somebody, whether it be a comic creator or something, or you see a project come out and they're like, yeah, like me and my collaborator met at New York Comic Con, or we met at C2E2. And like, there's a couple of these that are not like coming to mind with me, but like, you know, we've worked extensively with Svengoolie from the Midwest. He does the Svengoolie show, and like, Svengoolie did a thing with DC Comics that only happened because he met like DC Comics brass at C2E2. And was talking about how, like, if he hadn't met them, this cool special wouldn't have happened because the people at DC were fans of Svengoolie. And like, that stuff happens more often than you realize, and it's cool, like, just to be in some small way part of that.
People there's a magic in people finding each other, whether it's for business purposes or, you know, look, I personally, I can talk about, you know, between finding the best group of friends I've ever had in my entire life and finding my wife. I have it all to owe. I owe it all to working or being at a convention. Right? It's a fascinating thing that happens there. The world opens up, and even introverts become extroverts.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like, it's cool to be into comics now. It's cool to be into nerd stuff, but it wasn't always that way. And it's certainly different than when you and I were growing up. But like, for that one weekend a year, like, these people can like really let their freak flag fly, you know, and like feel among, you know, like-minded peers. And it's more, it's less societally frowned upon than maybe it once was, you know, looking at the top 10 box office of all time and seeing how many of them are comic book movies and what have you. But like, you know, those socially awkward nerds still exist, and they still need some place to congregate. Might as well be us.
Just, you know, socially distanced, well masked and sanitized, and we'll be fine.
Oh man, I can't wait till we can just blast each other with particles again. Just absolutely house each other.
Okay, two more things, because I want to give the listeners
Is it about how when we go back to conventions, we're not going to do temperature screenings, we're just going to spit in each other's mouths to get in the door?
Well, maybe we don't have to go any further. What I wanted to do, I literally have this written down. I want to give our listeners a taste of good old Orlando. And you spitting,
literally.
You spitting in their mouths is exactly.
We're not going to do that. Please, if you listen to this, please don't report on that.
If you've ever had the opportunity to go to New York Comic Con, where we were doing the mags outside, that's where the mouth spitting will happen in 2021. Yeah. No. Two more things. First of all, I want people to understand who you are fundamentally. And to get that done, I think two questions will paint the picture for everyone really well. Talk to me about why Tom Cruise is your favorite actor.
Oh man, Tom Cruise. All right, well, there's a speech that Alec Baldwin gives in. Tom Cruise is my favorite actor because of the Mission Impossible franchise, and there is a speech that Alec Baldwin gives in Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation, which is Mission Impossible 5, where he refers to Tom Cruise's character Ethan Hunt as "quote unquote" the living manifestation of destiny, and I think that is so poignant and is fitting of Tom Cruise in so many ways. But what we talked about earlier about my love of like this grandiose operatic cinema, like blockbuster movie making. Tom Cruise is the last true great movie star. Tom Cruise is going to die on camera for our entertainment. Of that, I am sure of. He has hung off of a C-130 jet. He has jumped out of a plane from the lower atmosphere like hundreds of times to get one shot. He is truly incredible, and I think he's a fucking maniac. I want to be crystal clear. I do not abide by a lot of his personal qualities. However, I truly enjoy his movies. I don't think that anybody on planet Earth loves movies more than Tom Cruise. Like nobody cares about movies as much as Tom Cruise does. And you can see it in the movies that he makes, and you can see it in him berating crew members off camera audio because they're breaking COVID protocols. I don't know if you heard any of that from over the like a couple months ago. Like, you can hear that shit in his voice. He's like, we're doing this because we're trying to get fucking movies back, and Tom Cruise is gonna save the movies.
There's one more way that I think we can get a little more DeLando into this episode. So I want you to about the Indiana Jones franchise for me.
Oh, fuck you. I have this reputation around the office as like hot take DeLando.
Oh, hot take DeLando.
That I have all of these hot takes, like it's a hot take to say that Tom Cruise is like the greatest movie star that ever lived. I don't think that's a hot take. Some people do, but I don't even know. I really love the Indiana Jones movies. I do, the good and the bad. But I somehow got into this this argument in the office about how I love Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the 4th Indiana Jones movie, which I don't. I don't think it's very good. It's got good stuff in it. My argument was simply that it's not the worst Indiana Jones movie. Temple of Doom is the worst Indiana Jones movie.
Why?
Temple of Doom sucks. Like, Temple of Doom blows chunks, man. Like, the opening of Temple of Doom rules. That rips. Like, the Club Obi-Wan sequence is so cool, and like everything until he gets in the plane rips, and then the movie just grinds to a fucking halt. Like, it's so boring. Like, Indiana Jones movies are travelogues. He's going around the globe. He's punching Nazis in the face. He's like doing all of these cool action sequences. You're getting to see all of these really great different locales around the world. And Temple of Doom takes place in like 2 rooms in like a mine. It's fucking boring. Short Round sucks. Kate Capshaw sucks. Like, the movie sucks. Like, I don't care. Oh God, it was on. They ran them like back to back on the Paramount network like last weekend when I was watching TV, and I just happened to keep fucking tuning in when Temple of Doom was on, and I was so mad. Like, that movie sucks. Like, it's boring. Harrison Ford's great in it. He saves it because like he's just incredible. But like, pound for pound, all right, let me put it this way. I don't really like either of them, but if you put a gun to my head and said, I'm leaving you in this one room for a year and you can have one movie, you can have Temple of Doom or you can have Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I'm taking Kingdom of the Crystal Skull every time, man. Like,
ladies and gentlemen, hot take DeLando.
And look, there's a reason why, just to indulge me for a minute, there's a reason why Last Crusade is the best Indiana Jones movie. It's because